Hey everyone, you are listening to The Ben Keech Show, where every day the objective is simple. Ben will never stop fighting the fight and lighting the light on topics that affect you every day.
Welcome everybody, my name is Ben. You are tuned in to the 84th installment of The Ben Keech Show. I am glad to have you. I am appreciative as always when you take these episodes and you allow your grandmother to listen, or you maybe decide I'm going to follow him on TikTok or Instagram so I can keep up with what's going on. Subscribing to YouTube if you're a visual learner is always appreciated as well. Today's topic is kind of fitting with the number 84 as if it was 1984 with the corrupt Big Brother government intervention that we are fearful of, because that is exactly what we're going to be looking at today as we look at some elements of Charlie Kirk, Israel, and different conspiracy theories that are going on and why it's important and what we need to be careful of. So thank you for tuning in. You may want to take out your little steno pad and a number 2 pencil to take notes. Love to hear your feedback on some of these things we're going to be talking about today. I'm actually going to start with 2 books that I'm reading. I kind of pull a story from these books every day, and they're going to correlate and correspond to our topic. One book is called Ego is the Enemy, and the other book is same author, Ryan Holiday. The other is Courage is Calling. And we have a crisis in our country with men in terms of having a lack of courage, and invariably our egos tend to always get in the way. A lot of times when we think about egos, we're thinking about an arrogant man, but honestly, even the quietest, seemingly most humble person, our ego tends to always get in our way. We'll look at that as we kind of direct our attention now to Charlie Kirk. Now, we're around Christmas time right now, 2025. The assassination has been months ago now, but the hoopla and the conversation, the speculations are in full force as prominent conservative voices such as Candace Owens wants answers, discusses what she thinks may have happened, who's behind it, all the way to linking some of the closest people to Charlie to the assassination. Now, before I get into some of that talk, I want to kind of proclaim a little bit what probably the average person knows. Why did Charlie's life matter? What did he do that no one else was doing? And I would first make that very specific claim that Charlie Kirk found a way through free speech on college campuses, whether you agreed with the information or not, to get information to young people that simply was not happening. In a perfect world, we would have college campuses where there were many teachers like Charlie Kirk. And I don't say that as a conservative. I say that because there's only one side, and a very specific side, more often, honestly, than liberal. It's very much more socialist, communist in nature that's being taught to young people at college campuses. So when you have a guy like Charlie Kirk, who not only is conservative, but he's very strong and very specific points where what he's saying is not politically correct. It's one thing to be against illegal immigration, but the way he professes his views, the way he then opens up the dialogue, which is the key point. Open up the dialogue to have conversations with people, and if you disagreed with them, you would be in the front of the line. And it was not just for clicks, it was not just for ratings, it was because he believed that the only way for progress to happen in America, for people to kind of disarm themselves in a way, their entitled attitude, is to have conversations. I cannot tell you how many times in my life, if you choose to text conflict, if you choose to have a telephone conversation about conflict, or if you actually choose to face have a conversation with another human being about conflict, it's interesting the dynamic difference. And I hope not only that they do a documentary someday about Charlie Kirk, I actually more would prefer to see a documentary done by all of the people who disagreed with him but grew to love him, appreciate him, respect him, because that's actually where the real gold is. The real gold isn't what your position is on abortion. The real gold isn't even necessarily in this conversation if you're a Christian or not. He was as evangelistic as, say, a Billy Graham. His name actually should be in the history book someday. And the way that he was gunned down and assassinated for millions to see is unlike any tragedy in that way that we've had in this country probably since assassinations of Martin Luther King and JFK. But then for that to be exposed in the way that it was, and again, I'm not saying who's a better American or who's more important in American history, but in 2025, he was doing something that nobody else was doing, and he was doing it in a way that connected to all people. The only other thing I will add is I don't know what Charlie's skeletons were. I don't think he had many. And I think that's kind of the final thing that, like, you can say what you want about his views. You can call him racist, even though that's the easiest thing to debunk ever. What we know about him is he loved his wife. He was a devoted husband and a devoted father. And every single person watching this video or that knows the name Charlie Kirk would be honored if he was their next door neighbor. You would want to have a barbecue with him. You would want to have conversations with him, because his mentality, which is confusing to some people in our modern generation, his mentality is such that you'll walk away friends with him in whatever disagreement you have. He just doesn't put himself out there in the way to get emotionally distraught because you think something different. As a matter of fact, he likes that and wants to have educated conversations. Now, that's the Charlie part of this. So as we move forward over the last couple of months, other things that have been kind of surfacing in the news are related to who did 9/11. And Israel seems to find themselves in the middle of a lot of different blame games when it comes to guys like Nick Fuentes, when it comes to guys like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. And then you have other people in the conservative movement, such as Ben Shapiro or Mark Levin, who are, and many others who, it seems that there's fracturing going on within the conservative movement, and it's all over conspiracies and Israel. Obviously, Jeffrey Epstein is another one of these characters where speculations, who's paying who, follow the money, even going back to what happened with 9/11. You know, I watched the Tucker Carlson 5-part series about 9/11, and the thing that I learned about that I could say is that the 9/11 Commission did a horrendous job. We need to redo and reanalyze the entire event of 9/11, the years prior, what's happened after. There's valid questions that need to be answered. Unfortunately, I think what answers are, it's not that another foreign entity did anything. What it is rather is that politicians cover for other politicians. It's why people probably in some ways voted for Donald Trump, because they viewed him as enough of an outsider and was maybe beyond corruption, even though I know some people, of course, think that he's probably the most corrupt person who's ever lived. The point being that Republicans and Democrats prior to 9/11 and during 9/11 covered themselves. And I think that there's a lot of conversations that need to happen around that issue. The problem that I have with what's going on right now are let me ask you this. What are the issues from a conservative perspective? What are the issues that have to be addressed and have to be talked about? As we've talked about numerous times on this show, we have a media and we have an educational system that doesn't lean left, it is left. It's so left that they dominate the the right and wrong on all issues. And what the left does, unfortunately, all too many times, is they look at, unlike Charlie, they look at their position as the moral high ground, and any position contrary to theirs, aka conservative, is blacklisted, is evil, is racist, is sexist. You only think that because of your white privilege. And so we castrate them to a particular place to where there's only one idea that's allowed. Now, Israel doesn't matter in the scope of that issue. What matters in this issue is how are we educating kids on, let's say, capitalism, socialism. So you take the United States of America, which too many people just go into your average college class, go into a U.S. history class, say what's good about America, what's bad about America. See what the answers. See what happens with those answers. There would have been a time before where there was a pride, and it's not some phony nationalism. It's not some egotistical, arrogant view of America that we're just better. But what capitalism provided was opportunity. What it also provided was freedom from the government so that we had the control over our own lives to start businesses, to find ways to support our families, to be successful without intervention, or at least minimal intervention from the government. So people like Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro, etc., this would be something they would talk about all the time. Why do they not talk about these things anymore? I mean, Nick Fuentes, who somehow has become a voice, but he's become a voice through saying some of the most hateful, ridiculous, lack of intelligent things I've ever heard another human being say. And then I've heard other podcasts where I know he's an intelligent man. I know he has some interesting ideas. I know he's an interesting character. But this is where ego comes in. That's why I have this book. This is where ego comes in from these people, because there's something about, putting a microphone in front of you, putting some lights in front of you, talking to people who, you have to be interesting enough for people to want to listen to, where what's the next story that can get me the most clicks? What angle can I take to be most controversial so that I cement my name in this lane as this is who I am and this is what I represent? And this is what these people are doing at the destruction in some ways and the fracturing of the conservative movement. Now, if you're a liberal-minded person, you probably don't mind so much. That's probably not a big deal to you. And guys like Nick Fuentes gives the average human being plenty of ammunition to attack and discredit some of the things that he says. I've listened extensively to the names and the people that I'm talking about in this podcast. And unfortunately, we're missing what's really important. What's really important are winning elections. What's really important are viewpoints and ideologies that make this country better. Capitalism makes this country better. And the funny thing is that people that talk against capitalism, they'll talk about corporations. I mean, the playbook's pretty simple. They'll talk about corporations. They'll talk about greed. They'll talk about millionaires and billionaires, and they don't need this and they don't need that. But what they don't realize and what they fail to discuss is capitalism on the macro level and capitalism on the micro level. So individuals, your next door neighbors, your friends that you see at the grocery store, your friends that you walk and talk with at church, they have their job because of capitalism, not socialism. What socialism does is it adds government, one simple thing, it adds government regulations. You say, okay, well, we need the government to protect and save us. Yes, that's what liberals say. What conservatives say is we need to be free to make our own decisions as autonomous human beings with limited government control. Because while some government control is understood to an extent, the more taxes, the more regulations, the more burdens somebody in some little penthouse office wants to say, just to say they did something to win another election, those decisions hurt people starting their own business. People don't start businesses because it's not necessarily finding the customers, it's overcoming what the government is doing. I'm not talking about get big corporations. I'm talking about a lady who owns her own business and has 5 employees. I'm talking about on the micro level. Those government regulations that you want for corporations because you're afraid of rich people, because you think rich people are the problem. Rich people are actually the solution. The solution lies in their money. What do rich people do? They invest. If I had a business idea and I needed $300,000 to start the business, and they could make money on their investment because they believe in what I'm starting, they believe in what I can do, and they have the capital to back it up, and I don't have to necessarily go to a bank. They're taking their money that they've made, and now they're turning over so that they can make a profit, and that so I can make a profit, and I can hire employees who can have jobs. That's capitalism. The wealthy individuals are the ones that are purchasing these purchasing products that help the economy go. And what happens though is when we get distracted on, well, who's Israel supporting and what's Tucker Carlson's opinion, what's his latest and greatest thing of why he thinks 9/11 is this or that. It's not that there's not truth or good ideas in some of the things they're saying, but I question how really courageous it is and what they're doing. I question Candace Owens' obsession with how Charlie Kirk died. I do want questions answered. But have you ever had a conversation with somebody where you can say they have like a militant side to them? Have you ever had a conversation with somebody where it's like, okay, well, it's not that your idea is wrong or bad or we shouldn't talk about it, but your whole persona, everything that's coming out of you is bent. It's like there's something distorted in your brain because you lack the ability to have any possible idea of something on the other side. If Israel's always bad, you're wrong. If Israel is the main problem with America, and I'm not saying America should give them this amount of money or no money, or we should hold Netanyahu accountable. It's not that we can't have those conversations, but I'm always going to be leery when I don't know the other side of any conversation, of any argument. That's why I love Charlie. Charlie allowed those other conversations. Sometimes he actually helped people make their points better for them than what they did. The other side of every coin has to be seen before you should make some dramatic, bold statement about something you probably don't know that much about. And if we as consumers, media consumers, or consumers of what the education system says, if your brain has the capacity to listen to one side and buy into whatever that's, I don't care who that person is. I mean, you know, it doesn't matter if it's the smartest person in the world. It doesn't matter if it's your pastor. It doesn't matter if it's a scientist. It doesn't matter if it's a president. You always need to ask yourself what is going on the other side. So if somebody says Ben Keech is this, this, and this, and it's 3 negative things, okay, well maybe he is those 3 bad things. But you're half a human being. You have the intellect of half a human being if you don't wonder, well, I wonder what Ben would say. I don't want to draw any conclusion of what any one person says about anything. I want to always know what the other side is saying. That's why, to keep up with politics these days, you know, you have to, I used to just be able to rely on like a Rush Limbaugh as my starting point. But now what's happened is because there's so many people making money at this, there are so many talking heads trying to compete for different issues. You do yourself a better favor to be like Nick Fuentes and deny elements of the Holocaust, or to say blatantly racist things, which it takes a lot for me to say that, to try to make some other intelligent point. You can't just have a conversation and debate people. There's an interesting debate with Nick Fuentes and this liberal kid. I'm going to call him a kid because he's a very, very, very young adult. And The kid's ideas were bad generally. He was extremely arrogant, as is Fuentes. They both really are. The interesting thing is Nick says stupid things. So instead of actually debating the topics, what did they do? They get sidetracked on idiotic statements that are being made. And that's a little bit of a sidetrack for me. But we have to, as conservatives, know what's important, what's a major, what's a minor. Charlie Kirk's life was valuable. He said and did things that it's going to be tough to fill his shoes. There's going to be other brave people. There's going to be people that are going to want to do that. But he was unique. He was the same person behind closed doors as he was in the public life. He had a heart that was genuine. And I think that's the whole, that's where faith comes in, and a belief of how we're supposed to love and treat other people. Everybody talks about it. Everybody talks about, how we care for people, how we love people, how we should be acting towards people. He had a genuine passion for human beings. And that's why people at these college campuses, even if they didn't like him, even if they disagreed with him, there's story after story after story of people like, I really like the guy. I understand him more now. I was listening to what teachers were telling me. I was watching these TikTok reels against him. But when I actually got face to face with the guy, I'm like, you know what? I kind of get it. I see where he's coming from. And I challenge you guys in this episode 84. I challenge you to take elements of what's going on in real life right now and say, you know what? I don't know if Israel was behind 9/11 or America knew it was going to happen or whatever. I just want to know all the sides. I'd like to know what happened with Building 7. I'd like to hear from a structural engineer to say, how did Building 7 actually fall down? I'd like to know that information. I'm not going to take what Tucker said as gospel truth, that there's, laced with bombs or explosives, but I still want to know the answer. And I think that in the political sphere, regardless of your opinion, I think it's wise to be slow to attach yourself to any viewpoint, to any talking point. Rather, spend extra time figuring out what the different sides say. What does a conservative Christian say about this? Because there could be another Christian who says something different. And why do they say that? Taking that information in and evaluating. The internet makes that happen easy, but it also can be reckless and dangerous, and just with all the ways that it can be contorted, may not be factual as well. So I would love to, this is one of those topics where it'd be, so much fun to have conversations. I have had conversations with so many people about these topics just in the last month. And, my prayers will continue to go out to the Kirk family. It's a travesty the way Erica gets judged by so many people out there. Imagine being her, imagine being a mom and a wife and what have you, and having what happened to your husband, and then also now having to battle different media components and different talking heads that are judging how you cry, how you pray, if a guy gives you a hug wrong. I mean, this judging is coming from all over the place. It's not just from liberals. There's just so much of it, and I just think it's unfortunate. I think we all need to do a better job of majoring on majors, minoring on minors, and knowing the difference. The better you are at knowing the difference, you'll have better relationships, better success, because take a teenager. This is a good point to end on. A teenager knows very well when a parent is way too dramatic and overplays their hand, if you will. And a parent, out of fear, overplays their hands at times. And I think that we have to kind of come back to this place of, you know what, I don't have all the answers of why someone said this or why somebody's acting this. I'm just going to be very slow to judge. And I wish that if I was a liberal person, and many liberal people did this, that when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, they should be in tears. They should be they should have sadness just the same as many other people. We don't want to see this happen in this country. We don't want a country where you're afraid to go speak your mind. It's one of the most beautiful parts of this country. It's how we are founded on, and we have to continue to fight that fight, to light the light that's inside of us about trying to help people see the truth. So thank you for tuning in to episode 84. My name is Ben. Definitely tell me what you think. You can follow me on Facebook. We can have conversations in a number of different ways. But I appreciate you tuning in. We're getting close to Christmas time. I hope you get lots of just amazing memories with your families. I hope you actually ask real questions this Christmas, have real conversations face to face. Some of these people you only see a few times a year. Maybe even invite a few friends to your Thanksgiving, to your Christmas. It doesn't just have to be family. I think the more love in a room and the more times we can get conversations, even with people that we disagree with, some of these things can smooth themselves out in a way that's healthy. So thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I can't wait till next time. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Let's keep the conversation going. You can reach out on Ben's website, www.benkeechshow.com, or on social media to chat. And please remember to subscribe so that you never miss an episode.